Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Just give me a second. I'm having some technical difficulties over here with my screen. Give me 1 second. I don't know what is happening here. Maybe this is the issue. Let's try that. It's not helping me. Well, we will run it like this. This is not my ideal. Oh, maybe is that the issue? That's the issue. All right. Well, clearly, I'm a little rusty from having a few days off here. I don't know what the heck happened. How are you guys all doing out there? We get through our weekend. I spent the weekend in DC doing something that I love more than anything, which is watching my daughter play some volleyball. Ultra competitive weekend, had a lot of fun. But we had some time to kill on Monday before headed back while you guys were all dealing with these storm issues. And it's my feel-good story for the day, for the show. If you have some time, I know in Massachusetts at least, we've got the kids out of school this week. We went and saw Paddington in Peru. I haven't been to the movies in I don't know how long, but kids loved it. Wife and I loved it. And if you're looking for something to do this week, Paddington in Peru, we'll have you crying a little bit, laughing a little bit, action-packed. Really, really good show. So enjoy that. What's going on in your real estate worlds? What is going on? Who's got something interesting going on that'd be a good share for the group? I love it when you guys are interactive. Well, we do have attorney Kate Garvey with us this morning, and I know Kate and I were talking a little bit before the show. I know she's got a few things on her mind. So Kate, and then I see your hand up, Lauren, so I'll let you go next. But Kate, why don't you take the mic? Are you in a good spot?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I'm actually up in New Hampshire. No skiing today because it is so windy. I feel like the house is going to get blown away. But yes, so I kind of have been writing things down, just things to kind of think about. And one of the things that I've kind of been running into are, when we do adjustments at the end of a closing for taxes, most people understand that, there's going to be adjustments for taxes and things like that. But a lot of people don't realize when it comes to oil and propane, that those all need to be adjusted for as well. And some people don't even realize that they have oil or that they have propane, and don't really fully understand. A lot of first-time home buyers don't really fully understand that. And you would think that, that wouldn't be an issue, but I see it actually more often than not. And I think it's super important that clients understand what it means to have oil, what it means to have propane and the adjustments and who to contact when they need to refill and all of that kind of stuff. Because that's also another phone call that I get, who do I call? How do I fill up my oil? And things like that. And also when you're doing your final walkthrough, I know I've had this a couple times where we get a reading from the other attorney saying, there's 3/4 of a tank at $3 and blah, blah, blah. But then when you go to the walkthrough, it's significantly less. So I always recommend that when you are doing your final walkthrough, double check, take a picture of the reading, because it could be very different from what the information that I have. So just kind of random thoughts about propane and oil. but it's kind of reared its head more than not lately. And maybe it's because it's cold. I don't know, but just some thoughts from me.
Yeah. Does anybody want to kind of jump on that? Hey, this is how I do it, or this is what I've done recently, or, I definitely think this is just a, part of our tasks, whether, you have a transaction coordinator and this is one of the steps, or you're doing this on your own. We've got to be working with our clients to make sure that we get this piece right, because it's just another adjustment at the closing that can delay the closing, that can hold up the closing. Chris, I see your hand up.
Good morning in my cozy snuggie on vacation week, but I went live for you, Steve, because
I
I
love
knew
it.
that's
I
what
love
you
it.
would like. This is a great one, and hi, Kate. It is a really
Hi,
good one,
Chris.
and I wrote in there an agent fail because it is our job as the agents not to rely on our transaction coordinators to let them know necessarily 100% what their things are that they have to transfer over. So always during a showing or actually at inspections, I tend to go over all this stuff with them when we're there walking around inspections. When there's an oil tank, I'll go over and I'll say, so see how there's a half a tank left, just so you know what will happen will be that the attorney is going to ask for, and I always take a picture because I never let it go by what was just thought about or said. And I let them know that the price that they're going to pay is going to be what those people paid at the time that they purchased it. So that was going to be a charge for them. That propane, even when there's cable or Westfield has, Whip City Fiber, I find out in that house what those people are using. And half the time I have to ask the agent, what are they using for this, that, and the other thing, just to make transfer easy. If it's an oil, who the oil people are they're already using. That'll avoid them probably having to have the tank, inspected because they're already doing it. So it's a very important part of our job.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that you're bringing to light here is it's not just the oil and gas, right? As an agent, we should be looking at all the utilities, right? We don't want our clients moving into these properties and going, oh, where do I get my electric? Where do I get my gas? Where do I get my cable? Where do I get my phone? Let's take care of that. Let's be a resource. KB, I see your hand up. What do you got?
Yeah, so there's two, actually I got two pieces. So probably not in a market where like we're in right now, but in previous markets where it was more of a buyer's market where you had a little bit more flexibility on what you were requesting. I have had situations where I have written it into the offer that we weren't going to pay for the oil that was left in the tank, and that the sellers were just going to basically, it was just going to transfer over to us. So I've done that before, probably not in a market where we're super balanced or it's more of a seller's market, but it is an option. And then two, the second piece to this is I think another thing that gets overlooked or sometimes people forget to pay attention to, and this would, it really is the listing agent's responsibility, but more times than not, sometimes the sellers don't even know, but leased appliances and leased things like propane tanks or hot water heaters. There are situations where I had a buyer, we purchased a house, and I called the listing agent and I'm like, hey, what's going on with the with the water heater? It looks like it's leased. And she's like, oh, no, they didn't tell me it was leased. Well, it was leased. They were paying it with part of their bill, and they had just been paying it for so many years that they forgot that they were leasing the water heater. So, make sure that you're paying attention to those things, because if those items are to transfer over to the buyer and they're leased, the buyer's going to have to either assume that lease or, someone's going to have to pay off the system or the unit. So that's another thing I think that maybe don't pay attention to or notice.
Yeah, great points. And just for some clarity there, right? The hot water heater, I think, is the one that we see the most. So your bill is, whatever, $300, but $25 of that is the water heater rental, right? And so now your client doesn't realize that they're going to be taking over that $25 a month. It's an extra $25 that they maybe weren't counting on, right? And so if you, as the listing agent, didn't put that it's leased, you now need to provide an owned hot water heater. And so your seller could be on the hook for paying the whatever it is, $300, $400, $500, $700 or whatever it's going to be to buy that out so that they own that hot water heater. So I don't know if anybody's got any stories around that, or hey, just a good share. A lot of times you'll see a sticker on the hot water heater, and it'll pretty much give it away that it's being leased, but a lot of times not. So I don't know if anybody's got anything else to share around this topic, because these transfers are a big deal, and it can be, a few $100s, a few $1,000s if this doesn't go smoothly. Chris.
Just that I have had this happen many times, both for the good and the bad, as Christina had mentioned. I've had it where at the listing appointment, it's one of my questions, do you lease anything? And they actually know what they're talking about. And they say, yes, I do. I lease my water tank. It's $27 a month. So it goes in the listing and it's perfect. And I've had it where I've had the buyer and where I've had the seller, and the seller told me no. And then we get to closing and the attorney always finds it, right? Because that's what they're going to find, is that it's on there. And then it comes up that, nope, it wasn't owned. It is a lease. And 9 out of 10 times when we get that far and somebody hasn't disclosed it, it has to be bought out, and that's what's been my experience, is that the one seller where it was against me and the one seller where it was for me, not necessarily me, but they usually have to pay it out. So it definitely is another one of those great upfront questions, but again, like Christina mentioned, sometimes they don't know. So yeah, that's been my experience.
Yeah. And I think that's the key point there, is just asking the client isn't probably going to be good enough. If you really want to be going above and beyond, ask for a copy of the bill, right? Show me your water sewer bill. Show me your gas bill. Show me your electric bill. Let's take a look at it. Let's see if you're paying for sewer, to make sure that you have actual sewer, right? That was that septic issue that we've talked about in the past, where they thought they had city water and city sewer, but they didn't. So the bill's going to tell you if they're getting charged for that. Typically those bills are right. Anybody else? Is anybody using a utility transfer form sheet? I don't know if we're using that. It seems like that would be a good idea, that just says, hey, here's all the utilities and here's the current providers. Anybody doing anything like that? Because if we do that, go ahead, KB.
Sorry, I'm driving and I can't find the hand raised real quick. So I know I can speak for us at Roby. We don't actually send over, a utility transfer sheet, but we do have an email template that is available that does show who the different providers are in our different areas. So it is a resource. It's not as detailed, but just so everybody knows, if they didn't know, that we do have something similar.
My TC sends the same thing over, which is a page that says, if you're in Agawam, it's this. If you're in Westfield, it's this. If you're here, it's this. But I think sometimes these buyers get overwhelmed with the emails that do come. Yeah. And I think it's just one of those ones they're like, yeah. Kind of like the smoke certificate to the seller. It's time to do the smoke certificate. I never count on that email. I got to call at least 3 weeks before and be like, did you get the email? And it's usually, what email? So for me, just what KB said too, we do that. So it's there for them. And at least I can say, well, go back and check that sheet. But as an agent, you got to stay on top of these transactions.
Yeah, that's just a good point in itself, that just these emails, they're getting so many, they're busy with other things. Like, they're not going to read everything. We're covering our butts by sending everything, but I think a good, strong agent is also following up. Did you see the email? Do you have any questions? How can I help move this along? Any other things around utilities?
I think you could probably have a whole talk on this alone, but solar transfers too. They can be a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I, you know,
we've talked about him, Kate, on the call, and I think the only real way on these things, and I'd love to hear your thoughts if there's anything different. We've got to start that process so early, or because some of them move really quick, some of them take forever. So as soon as we see solar panels, right, we got to jump on it. And as a listing agent, try and get it all sorted out before you even bring the property to market. So I don't know, what your thoughts are, Kate, on what you've seen.
yeah, I agree. I think, I mean, and some companies are obviously much easier to deal with than others. You get the emails right away that the transfers are happening. But, as an attorney, I'm not usually involved in the transfer of solar. I don't, like that's usually, to me, an agent, helps the client fill out the paperwork and do, that part of the deal. But like, I had one, it was a nightmare, because the seller put it, it was the buyer, I'm sorry, the buyer put it into, the buyer's boyfriend put the contract into his name and her name. And there was a huge issue because the deed was just in her name and the solar didn't transfer. And it was literally months of trying to figure out, trying to fix this problem, which doesn't seem like a hard problem to fix. But when you're dealing with a company where there's 9 million people and, you never talk to the same person twice, we did finally resolve it. But, such an avoidable thing that it cost my client, like it messed with her credit because the bills were still going to her and she was trying to buy a house and couldn't because of the solar issue. So it really, had it turned into something it didn't need to. But solar, it can be, I guess what I'm trying to say is I've had plenty of solar deals that are very smooth and you just provide them with the deed and it's good to go. But then I've had other times where, it, it posed a big issue. So I definitely think starting early and making sure that everybody are on those solar emails too, so we kind of know what's going on, I think is super important.
Yeah, start early because you just don't know where it's going to go. KB, you were next.
Yeah, I think an important point to this, and 100% what Kate's saying, is you got to start early. It starts from the showing. Like if you have a showing and you are, or you're taking the listing, make sure that you as an agent understand what the situation is with the solar panels. Are they leased? Are they owned? Do they have a copy of their current solar contract? Right? If you're a listing agent, maybe you should have that available or at least attached to the listing so that, a buyer understands what they're stepping into. And if you're a buyer's agent, that should be something that you're writing into your offer, that you have all the information for the solar company so your buyer can do their due diligence, and tie it to the inspection period so that you have something, right? Like let's say you find out that the solar panels are leased and it's going to be X amount of money, that they're going to have to pay a month, and that might change their DTI. It might affect the ability for them to even purchase the home. Like these are all things that you need to know up front. So writing it into your offer and making sure that you're doing the steps from the very beginning is going to be super important.
Yeah, the one thing that I haven't heard regarding these panels, when you're on the listing side, get that contract like KB said, and then reach out or have the seller reach out to the solar company to find out what the transfer process is. Let's just have all those ducks in a row right up front. Hey, you're going to need to go to this website. You're going to need to download this. You're going to need to call this phone number, whatever the case might be, so that we're not scrambling during the transaction. Because, like Kate said earlier, sometimes these companies, you'll never talk to the same person. They can't find the contract. It transferred before and it didn't transfer right because they're the second owner. It can get sticky. Adam, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so one big thing to understand, so the solar companies are really good. They understand these transfer processes happen all the time. So my recommendation is to have the buyer be an authorized person on the account once you accept the contract, and allow them to call in and they can talk to the solar company and understand the process, right? So the one I just sold with a solar panel, they had to take over $110 monthly payment. Right now, it was in their benefit ultimately, so I knew it wasn't going to be a deal breaker. But at the end of the day, they had to take over $110 monthly payment for the solar. So You know, your buddy might have solar and he might tell you, oh, it's free, I don't pay anything, my bill is zero. But just know that there's all kinds of different systems. Some have escalators where that $100 might be $103 next year, then $106 a year after. So just lean on the solar company to explain how the process works. Do it early in the due diligence period so that it doesn't come up, you know, 2 weeks before closing where they're going to sign the solar transfer agreement. And they're like, wait a minute here, I got to pay $110 to have these things on my roof. I thought solar was free, right? That's how it's always pitched. So the second thing is, and this is huge, especially for those down in Florida, the cost to remove the solar panels off of the roof has gone up. Hi, sweetie. Has gone up. Kids are at the bus stop. Has gone up extremely high. So the cost to remove the solar panels years ago was $500 if you needed to get your roof done. The last quote I just got to remove the solar panels, because I had some mold under the roof, was $16,000. Okay, so where this is important is if you've got a buyer who's got solar panels on an older roof, these solar leases are typically 25 years long, right? So if it's a 20 to 25-year-old roof, because the system was put on, you know, maybe 5 or 7 years ago, you might have 20 years left on this lease, and you've got to get that roof replaced. And I don't know much about the savings, but I don't think you're saving more than $16,000 in solar. So just make sure your buyer understands when they're buying a house what that cost is to remove those panels if they ever need to replace the roof, because to me that could be a deal breaker. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. I don't know that it's every contract, but it was in my contract what the cost was, right? So I have solar on my house. I got it back. I think I moved in 2013 and got it right around that same time. So I've had it on for over a decade. But in my contract, it was $500 to remove and reset the solar panels, just like Adam just said. But they originally tried to like charge me like $4,000. Right? Because I think I needed to do my roof. I asked, called up. I think it's been bought out by Tesla now. So I called up, hey, I know you guys, there was something in my contract that says you guys will come out and remove and reset, or I think they even have to, right? I think that's the other thing. If you have a third party do it, it could void the warranty or something. So the company that installed, in my case, had to do the remove and reset. And I remember when they sold it to me, they're like, oh, yeah. Because I asked that question, what about when I got to replace the roof? Oh, it's just $500. Luckily, it was in my contract that it was $500, but they were going to charge me like $4,000 or some crazy amount per panel. So check your contracts. Maybe it'll actually be a line item in the contract that says how much it's going to cost. Because I think 500 is the opposite way, right? Like there's no way it would cost $500. I mean, the guys were out there for at least a half a day to get them off and another half a day to put them back on. It wasn't a $500 job. It was much more than that, but probably not 16,000. So, KB.
Yeah, sorry, one more story. So my mom and my sister, we purchased a home, I guess it was like 3 years ago now. And it was a property of a friend of mine that had passed away. The property was in probate. Kate actually worked on this deal. All of the debts wound up getting discharged, including his solar panel contract. And so they didn't owe any money on the solar panel contract. The solar panels were on the roof. The solar panels were functioning and everything was good to go. Well, the roof was leaking. So we had to try to figure out how to get the solar panels off the roof. Well, the company that installed them wasn't going to be responsible for them anymore because the debt had been discharged. We called an electrician. Electrician said that they'll remove the panels. It's $125 per panel. There were 27 panels on the roof. So it was $125 to take them off, $125 to put them on, and we had to repair the roof. And there's no like warranty on these panels at all. So I think it's important to definitely understand like where you're at in the process of what your options are, because like Adam's saying, it can be incredibly costly. I mean, it's not $16,000 in our case, but just to take the panels down and put the panels up was almost $6,000 because they had to be reattached and everything else. So it can get really expensive, and especially if you're in a probate situation, definitely understand kind of what's going on with the lease that's in place and if it's getting discharged, if anything's covered. And I think another part of this was that the panels had been sold at some point in time. The loan had been sold to another company. It was just a complete shit show. So, just pay attention, I guess.
Anybody else with some thoughts around solar, utilities, transfers? We didn't talk about water readings, but that's another one that the attorney's always going to be asking for. Get a picture of that. Every town's going to do that one different. If anybody wants to share anything around that, an issue that they ran into or just didn't go as smooth as normal.
Steve, this is, I don't know if it was already said because I'm driving. In regards to solar, if you're on the buy side, make sure that lender knows what that payment's going to be as soon as possible in the process, so it doesn't screw up their DTI.
Yeah, we touched on it briefly, but we didn't talk. We talked about, that it could mess it up, but I think the key is getting the actual monthly payment over to the lender, right? A good lender should be asking that question, but I don't think most of them are going to, right? So make sure we're factoring that in. If the solar panel payment is $200 a month, that could put somebody over their limit. So it's a great point.
And it might affect their credit score if they have to pull credit in order to assume the loan.
Yeah.
And the water heater might only be $25, but again, $100 in solar, 25 on the water heater. Now you're talking $125 DTI. I bet you that would blow up 75% of deals because these guys run tight on DTI. So the other thing just I'll mention on water heaters, to go back to that for a second, is there is a benefit to the water heater other than just the lease, and that is I'm under the impression it always comes with a service plan, right? So if that water heater blows, you're first on the list. You call up, I think they're all the stickers say Berkshire Gas, but whatever it is, Eversource now, and you will get a brand new water heater for free. That's typically how it works. So just know that there might be more value to it than just the lease payment. You're getting the service plan as well.
Yeah, and I know we've had this happen a bunch of times, whether it was to clients or just to friends and family. You lose that water heater, sometime during the winter or on the weekend, or good luck trying to get somebody to come out and replace that hot water heater. Whereas when you've got it on a lease and you've got it on a plan, these companies are usually pretty proactive. And I would say within 24 to 48 hours, you'll have yourself a new hot water heater, where if you have to, go do all that yourself, I don't think it's going to be that quick. So, and this is just information to have to tell the story when, you find out that you've got to tell your client, hey, it's an extra $35 a month because they don't own the hot water heater. Oh my God, it's $35. Like what the, but hey, here's the benefit of paying $35 a month, right? So be able to tell both sides of the story, because for a lot of people, I think it's well worth the $35 a month to not have the hassle of when that thing blows and then you're trying to replace it, because it's going to happen at the worst time. All right. We started sleepy, but we really got into it today, which is what I love. So appreciate you guys coming on and bringing the juice today. It was good banter. Let me just throw up on the screen what we've got available for trainings today. So what do we have? We are loaded today. 7 different classes: Trends and Tactics Mastermind, Psychology-Driven Sales, Sphere to Success, the Real Wallet Unlocked. So that is a real agent thing only. Building a Pipeline of First-Time Homebuyers, an Attraction Accelerator, and Serving Your Sphere. What do we have that twice today? Or Sphere to Success. I guess 2 different Sphere calls today. So take a training, learn a little something, come back and share it with the group. Hope you guys have a great Tuesday, and we will do it again tomorrow morning. Take care.